Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, and welcome back to our continuing deep dive into the depths of Four Against Darkness. And today we're going to be taking a look at two supplements, and those are Twisted Final Fights and Twisted Hordes. And then after we take a look at these, we're going to be revisiting my idea for a kind of a starter set. Like, let's say you're just getting into Four Against Darkness and you want to know what to buy. I think I've put together a really good collection of books that will offer a lot at certain levels. So let's talk about Twisted Hordes and Twisted Final Fights. Both of these are awesome. I love these expansions so much. Spoiler alert, these are now included in my definitely buy package, and we'll be talking about at the end of this video or towards the end of this video. And that is especially true with Twisted Final Fights. This expansion right here is, I think, one of the best expansions in the entire Four Against Darkness line. Let's read the back of the book here and see what it says. Twisted Final Fights is a supplement for Four Against Darkness, bringing variety to final boss encounters. Using a D100 table, you will encounter frightening final bosses such as the Bewitched Armor, the Balron Scourge Master, the Etten Adventurer, Acker Beltz's Bellringer, the Mutant Houndling, the Abyssal Eye Maw, the Three-Eyed Mutant, the Lich Sigilist, the Corrupted Swamp Elemental, and many more. 48 final bosses that scale up with the power of your party, a D66 table for weird treasures, rules for the Enchanted Homunculus, a weird creature that can join your party after you collect enough pieces to build it. This is not a standalone game. This supplement for characters of all levels requires the Four Against Darkness core rulebook. 2 10-sided dice are also required. This expansion adds so much to the game. I almost consider it an essential purchase. This thing feels like maybe 2 full expansions combined. So what you get, the core of this expansion is this table here, which is going to include 48 bosses for you to fight. And each one of those bosses is detailed on its own page. Each boss has a picture showing some great art, has a little bit about the creature, and each one of these bosses feels like a kind of a little Four Against Darkness minigame. Often they will have special powers or special things that you will have to do to defeat them. Things beyond simply rolling a higher number. These bosses are quite a bit more complex than the final bosses included in the base game, and even more complex than some of the final bosses that you will see in the other expansions that do include final bosses. But the fact that each one of these has a full entry about it and has variety to it and has its own art, I really enjoy this book a lot. Let's see who the artists are here. So this is written by Andrea, and this has illustrations by Andrea, Fat Goblin Games, and Stinky Goblin. I love those two. Jason Glover has some art in here. So some familiar names, some people that we have looked at before in the Dungeon Dive. But yeah, I was so impressed. This is the boss that I am hunting now, the Purple Goblin Champion. So this says that, so he has hero class level +5. So HCL, you take your highest level character in your party and add that bonus. So that's how everything scales. HCL is the way that things scale in Four Against Darkness. It's a really easy system, and I like it. It's simple, and it gets the point. It gets the job done. The Goblin performs 2 attacks per turn, using them both against the hero with the highest melee attack bonus. So he targets good melee fighters, because he's a champion. Pick a target randomly if 2 or more heroes are tied. The Goblin is a skilled duelist, and any blow from his sharp scimitar will inflict tear damage. So tear is something that the game has started to introduce. This is the first time that I have seen it, but there are going to be eventually 5 different tiers for Against Darkness. When your characters are levels 1 through 4, we are in the basic tier, and that's the basic game here. When they go from levels 5 to 9, they go into the expert tier. And in that, you would look at 4 Against the Abyss. And then there are also going to be, and we haven't seen any of these yet, I don't believe, but heroic, legendary, and epic. And so you're going to be able to get your characters up to past level 20 eventually within the realms of 4 Against Darkness. And so some things scale based on your tier that you're on. So you could continue to see these, use these bosses as you go up in different book levels. Sometimes you will have to reference this number depending on the tier that you are in. So, and again, a very simple way to cause the enemies to scale. Any blow hitting the goblin has a 3 in 6 chance of bouncing off his armor and a buckler. So he is highly armored, very hard to hit. The goblin wears an amulet around his neck. The first spell cast at the goblin will be at -3, the second at -2, and the third at -1. After this, the amulet will have lost its powers and spells may be cast with no modifier. Every time a goblin champion kills a hero, his level increases by 1. And the goblin champion's level does not decrease by 1 when he is brought down below his half-life total. So yeah, pretty difficult foe. I like the complications there. I love that Cyclops hag art. That is super cool. But yeah, all kinds of great final bosses for you to fight. Really creative stuff here. Again, I love all the art in this book. Really makes this book feel a little more special than some of the other books, especially more special than Twisted Hordes, which we will take a look at in just a minute. But you also get a new D66 table for all of your weird treasures. So you get a whole bunch, like 36 more weird treasures to roll on. And one of the coolest things on this weird treasure table are these pieces of the Enchanted Homunculus. And as you find them, when you find 7 of these pieces, then you can create an Enchanted Homunculus as a character class that can join your party. And it's kind of like an automaton, an ancient android, some kind of weird golem-like construct that you can take on your parties. And it's a pretty complex character class. Has all kinds of different rules and different ways that it levels up, and it has its own skills that it can choose from or that you can assign to it as it levels up. Really, really cool idea there. Having to hunt for different ingredients to combine to create a different character class. I like that a lot. You also get, so you'll get all of your rules here, all of your basic rules, all of the rules changes, your introduction. Some of these creatures are rare, some are unique. So I like to, as you're hunting them, you can mark off the ones you've done so you can't encounter those more than once per party. You don't add final boss bonuses from the base book. All of the bonuses are included in the monster stats. We have these legacy foes. So sometimes now a boss monster might escape and then come back in an inopportune moment in a future dungeon to hunt you. That is pretty cool there. We can all the rules for leveling your boss encounters and experience tiers. We've gone over that before. No reactions, no morale. Sometimes there are madness, so it does mention the madness rules here. Tells you about how to do your treasure. Tells you about your mundane attacks. And then also now we have 6 new mission types that are all revolve around these bosses. And very cool because now you can have these little monster hunting missions. And so I am on a monster hunt. And when you choose to take a monster hunt mission, you roll the monster, you roll the final boss that you're going to fight beforehand. And then you go through a dungeon trying to hunt that monster. And there are different ways to spin clues and different bonuses you might get as you are hunting the monster. You can say you're going to raid a monster's lair, kind of like a monster hunt, but again, a few different complications. You have a terrorized village, which is interesting. You draw a little village on a piece of paper. You draw 6 boxes, and you assign your heroes to those boxes. And then you roll a d6 to determine where the boss is attacking. And then you have to move your characters to that location of the village to defend the village against the boss. We have monsters on the loose. So you might be chasing a monster around and have to kind of gather up the help of townspeople. And in this one, your characters are at a disadvantage because you are not prepared for the attack. And then these two, monstrous competitors and more monstrous competitors, these are little scenarios where they pit 2 of the 48 bosses against each other. And then you get to choose at the beginning of the mission which boss to side with. And depending on which boss you side with, you consult this chart here, and you might get a special bonus against that other boss. And then once you kill that other boss, you can then choose to also kill the boss that gave you the bonus to get another reward. Really, really great. Very creative expansion. An expansion that adds an absolute ton to the game, and one that I will be using over and over again. Twisted Final Fights is fantastic. Okay, then second today, we're going to take a look at Twisted Hordes. So Twisted Hordes, I also think this is a great expansion, but this is one that is a little more situational. This is something that I could see using almost every time, at least for rolling up final bosses, just because they're so cool and there are so many of them and it's so easy to do. Twisted Hordes is basically a D100 chart for unique treasure, and this has been something that the game has needed. The For Against Darkness has needed. It's just a single book of cool treasure. I think one other thing we really need is a merchant's book, a book of all the things we can buy and things that we can invest our money in, and what those things do. We really need a book like that. But let's see what this says. Not just another sword plus 1. This book is a long random table of mundane magic and special items for your For Against Darkness adventures. All the items may be used for all levels of play, from food items to kitchen silverware, from explosive pumpkins to wearable werewolf fangs. This book has a little for everyone. Find enclosed leprechaun shoes of self-propulsion, masterwork lockpicks, amulets against all types of dangers and foes, pocket-sized fireballs, elven and dwarven purses, eternal bread baskets, quintessential honey, and a full subset of optional rules for mapping. And so, like this says, anytime you need to roll for a special treasure, you can roll a D100 on this chart here, and it's just a huge collection of treasure to get. Now, I do wish there was a little more art in here, showing a description, showing a picture of each item. That would have been amazing. But this one is a little lighter on the art, but it is not light on content because you get a whole bunch of stuff. Again, you also get the HCL mechanic, so it scales properly, and also tier numbers, so it scales up depending on what level your party is at. But there are all kinds of different things. I'm trying to keep a lot of the stuff in this book secret to me, just so when I roll it up, I am surprised at the fun stuff that I will be able to find. And another thing that this book adds here is this book adds the ability to take your maps that you are making and then sell them after you are done. So you have to think a little bit more about how you are mapping. It adds a little bit of a cartography mini game to your games of For Against Darkness, because you do kind of have to buy certain gear in order for your characters to do mapping. You have to decide when your characters are mapping. Are they taking a break to map, or are they mapping on the fly, and that kind of stuff. And then it tells you that you can also sell your maps when you are done. And speaking of maps, this is the map that I'm on right now, trying to hunt that goblin duelist guy. I started down here, went up here. I met this lady in white. where she gave me a quest to slay all monsters. That's a really hard quest to complete. So I don't know if I'm going. You basically have to clear the dungeon completely. This has been a weird dungeon. It's like very long and kind of it's been a long game actually. Lots of minion and vermin fights in corridors. Got a blessing there. I met a ghost there. And now I'm right here. I just finished fighting another group of minions to continue my hunt for that goblin champion. So now let's take a look at what I would consider to be a good starting set of things to buy. So let's say that you want to get into 4 Against Darkness and you're interested in the game. You watched a bunch of videos. There's tons of content online. So you should be able to know if you want to get into this game or not. And if you do, I recommend against buying just the base book. You need something else with this. I think people will grow very tired of the base book pretty quickly. And I had a pretty bad experience. I mentioned in my review when I first bought this game, all I had was this. And it didn't entice me. The game didn't really appeal to me until I started getting more things. And then the game really jumped up in my estimation. Now it is on my top 50. So if you want to get into the game, I suggest you buying the 4 Against Darkness base book or the PDF along with Twisted Dungeons and Twisted Minions. Both of these I've done detailed looks at. So you can check the 4 Against Darkness playlist to find the reviews for these. But what these do is these add complications, these augment, these modify, they add twists to all of your basic dungeons and all of your basic minions. And these are basically just charts that you are going to roll on that are going to cause different things to happen while you are playing your base game, depending on the kind of dungeon you're in and depending on the kind of twisted minions you are going to fight. So these 3 books here would be my first purchase. And then I would add these 3 books. I would add Fiendish Foes. So Fiendish Foes allows you to have more powerful monsters to fight because the game can get a little easy as you level up and then things aren't quite as powerful. The monsters aren't quite as powerful. And so this gives you just an idea, just a whole list of a few new creatures to fight. It's a very small supplement, only a few pages, but this can help add a little bit of variety to your games. I have not done a full review of that yet. Then with that, I would buy Wayfarers and Adventurers and a concise collection of classes. Both of these I have done full reviews on, so check the playlist. Of these 2, I prefer Wayfarers and Adventurers because of the 2 things in here are milestones and character traits. Those things add different ways to modify and make your characters a little more personified. They add a little bit of personality to the characters by giving them unique traits and kind of personal milestones, little personal quests to go on. This book also adds more classes and just all kinds of cool stuff to the game. And then this is another collection of classes and further things that can be easily added to all of your games of 4 Against Darkness. Especially get this book if you are into elves or dwarves, I should say, because this has a whole section at the end on dwarves. It goes really in detail about that race. And then after you buy those 3, then I would recommend these 2 here, Twisted Final Fights and Twisted Hordes. And if you are for sure, you just know that you're going to like 4 Against Darkness because of all of my videos or all of the other videos. Like I said, there are hundreds and hundreds of videos of 4 Against Darkness on YouTube. By the time you want to get into the game, you really should know that you're going to like it. This packet here, right here, this would be an incredible box set. As a matter of fact, I would love to see this released in some kind of box. All of these books in a box set would be super, super cool. I think all of these books together is about $80, probably $60, maybe less if you bought the PDFs. But this packet here would just give you many, many dozens and dozens of hours of dungeon diving fun. So that would be like my ultimate package of Four Against Darkness to buy. If you were like, okay, I'm going to take a deep dive plunge into Four Against Darkness, get the core book, your twisted dungeons, your twisted minions, Wayfarers and Adventurers, concise collection of classes, fiendish foes, twisted final fights, and twisted hordes. I really hope to see more of this twisted line because I love the way that they add things to just the base game of Four Against Darkness. So, all right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this look at these new Four Against Darkness books, and we will talk to you later. Bye bye.